Hello and welcome to Far Afield here on RivalCast Media for March the 15th, 2015, episode 34. My name is Sayomara, and tonight I am greeted by the one, the only, coming in from futurish lands, Mr. Stephen Dunn.
Hi.
Hi.
What's going on?
Not much.
So, quick note, this is serendipitous. So, I never listen to the show. I've been on the show. I never listen to it. And not because I have any issues with the show. It's just,
I'm not saying I hate the show. I'm just saying that I don't listen to it.
No, I always miss the announcements because you move around when you record and stuff, right? Or I've got something going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually Sunday night. It's been 8:30. Our Sunday 8:30 slot's been relatively consistent. Right now, we are in the Walking Dead season, so yeah, because that. So everyone who knows who was here last for episode 33, we talked at the end of the show like, okay, we're gonna move it back so Scott can watch his Walking Dead and he can make it to the show. Well, it gets 9 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, where's Scott? I don't know. So, and this is after he disappears mid-show, when we're doing our Leprechaun commentary Friday night. So, who knows? I don't know.
Hope he's all right. But I actually got the Twitter notice, and I actually came in to watch the show, and then there were no co-hosts. And so,
yes,
serendipity. It was fated. The finger of God has put me in this spot tonight. So let me do my best to mess that up. Yeah. Anyways, squander its opportunities. So what's going on?
Life's been pretty quiet overall. Just we're finally hitting spring. We're still University of Iowa is on spring break, so like most of the schools here in Middle Iowa have spring break, but my spring break is attached to Easter, as schools more traditionally do. So I still have 2 weeks before spring break, so which is good and bad. I mean, on the good side is I get to do. I was gonna say it lets me do Pi Day activities tomorrow, which is gonna be really cool. Where I'm gonna have them like manually calculate pi and a few things like that. So I'm looking forward to it.
I used to work with a woman, well, a girl. She was younger than I was. That she had memorized like the first 500 or so digits of pi.
I've never.
I don't think she went to like competitions, but she had it memorized.
I was looking at it the other day, and I think the world record is several thousand digits of pi. But I don't really see the value in that. Like, I mean, granted, a lot of Guinness World Record kind of things I don't really see the value in.
That's a freak show.
I mean, kind of is. I mean, world's longest fingernails.
It's freak show or marketing. That's exactly the example I think of because I saw him and he looks like he was like an Indian Howard Hughes. He just his hair was long and his nails were long. I expected him to have like.
I always look at that and I like, what do you do for a day job? I mean, do you have a day job? Or you? I assume you don't because you have nails that would like. Your whole shtick is that I have the world's longest fingernails. Like,
extremity is rarely pleasant, and people that sort of seek out extremity tend to be kind of pathological, And in some cases, it's kind of cool because it's like I'm going to climb the world's highest mountain, But even then, you go up there and there's all the corpses, at the top of the peak, Like these sort of extremities are just they're weird.
But I mean, it's different when it's something that's relatively like you go to the top of Everest. Yes, there are 200 bodies or something up on the mountain, but realistically, your chances are still relatively good of getting there and back without dying. Of the several thousands of people who go up the mountain, maybe 1 or 2 die each year. Statistically speaking, your chance of dying, assuming you're in the kind of health that can get you up the mountain, are relatively low.
Yeah.
It's not walking across the street kind of healthy, but it's not bad. And generally speaking, you don't
live where I live, man. People down here drive like maniacs. It's terrifying.
Well, you're in Illinois. Illinois driving is inherently bad. You have Chicago to discourage.
But yeah, so
yeah.
But it's just like growing your fingernails and not cutting them. That takes no effort. That's like my beard. My beard is kind of long.
Yeah.
Truthfully, it takes no effort. I don't. There's no pride to be had in the fact that my beard is longer than most people's. Literally, it just grows passively. I do nothing to actively grow it. I mean, it's not like I have to sit and spend time out of my day thinking real hard and making my hair grow. You know, it just, it's really just because it grows
I mean,
out and it looks
is it
all
that
right. I don't
kind
have
of?
to
I mean,
do it.
isn't this a growth of kind of the culture we're in though
It's
at the moment?
laziness. I have a long beard because I don't like to shave. You know, it's just like not cut.
Oh, I thought you had a long beard because you wanted to be able to tuck it into your belt. Because you asked me, that's kind of.
Don't give me ideas. My current plan
But that's
is
how you
so
become a
actually
dwarf. When you could
well,
tuck your beard into your belt, then you've become a dwarf officially.
it's not as impressive as you think though because of their torso to their torso height relative to their survivors. Speaking of dwarves, I've started playing Hearthstone, and oh my
Yeah.
god, I'm addicted. I'm addicted. I'm only like rank 23. I'm horrible at it, but I was so happy when I was promoted from angry chicken to leprous gnome.
Oh.
It's just like, do you play Hearthstone?
I do. I actually a lot of nights I play Hearthstone during this broadcast, which there's really no yeah, you can hit me up on I think
I will,
my
yeah.
if you look at my Grand Old Podcast Twitter handle, I think I have my gamer tag on there.
Oh, sweet, sweet, yeah, yeah. I'll tell mine straight up because it's Hearthstone. It's not like I'm going to be like spammed
Yeah.
by creepy people. Mine is diffeomorph, as in like a mathematical diffeomorphism.
Okay.
Diffeomorph. Um,
Uh, I'm gonna
feel free
say
to add me. Anyone listening to this.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Cool. Yeah, no, yeah. I'm just addicted to this because all I do anymore is just write C code and play Hearthstone.
So what are
It's
you writing
awesome.
C code for?
This C code is actually because my C code sucks, and so
Okay.
so
That seems like
uh,
something like for someone of your coding caliber that the fact that you're not great in C seems to surprise me.
well, I mostly write C++,
Okay.
and so my focus has been so I needed to know C for some video game coding I'm trying to do, and I realized that my C skills weren't up to par. So I sat down and there's a code competition website I compete on, and you're not actually competing directly against people like a head to head. It's just kind of a ranked leaderboard. So I've been going through doing all of those in C, basically going through and rewriting all my solutions to those problems. I normally do them in Python, rewriting them all in C. And
Okay.
so I'm currently in the top 10% for C, which sounds kind of impressive, except the ranked is easy, medium, and hard. And I've only done like three-quarters of the easy. It's just nobody writes in C because it's just hard and
Yeah.
nightmarish. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be in like the
And I was
top
gonna say that, and
1%
that would
in like
explain why
in
there's
like
always like
3 days.
it would explain why there's always such a huge demand for C programmers out there.
Bad thing is I know I've started to get good at it because at first I was extremely verbose, and now my C solutions are shorter than my C++ solutions. They're not as short as my Python solutions, but it just is that's kind of inherently impossible, because of the way the
Yeah.
languages work. But it's just like I've reached the point where it's like C++. I don't need that overhead. Screw that.
Yeah, but you're looking for
I'm gonna
efficient
manually
code
allocate
in a
those
world that doesn't
buffers.
really value efficient code that much.
No, it's true. Truthfully, so this is because my focus since I left my job in November has been video games, right?
Mhm.
Because really, it's what I've always wanted to do, right? Programming
I'd
wise.
imagine there is demand for programmers in the video game industry. A lot
There's a
more than
there's a
there are game developers.
yeah yeah there's a there's a lot of demand for programming talent. It's lean at the entry points, which is kind of
Mhm.
what's working against me. But so truthfully, I've just been sitting down and just writing just video games, like demos and small games.
So what's
Um,
stopping you from just like
and
getting a job with some like indie publisher, like
well, they don't they
you
don't
know?
hire they don't hire a lot of people, indie
I mean, you
publishers.
just need to find somebody who's starting a project and say, "Hey, you need a programmer," and like, or maybe
Well,
that's
I've actually been on a website called Indie Team Up,
okay.
which is it's a fairly new website. It's only been around since November. But Indie Team Ups, their thing is it's just a social network where people can form groups for development projects, and it's pretty cool. Like I just need an artist. I need a musician. Um, because my pixel art is just atrocious, just like abysmal, horrible.
Just because you're the programmer doesn't make you the artist or the writer or any of those things.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm just saying that I can't. I'm just saying I can't do a one man. I can't be a one man band because my art skills are too bad.
Yeah.
But Indie Team Up lets me find musicians and
clearly
artists.
what you should be doing is you should be talking to Chris Robertson and see if you can work for him.
Is he hiring?
I don't know. Would you like to work for Star Citizen?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like that's not even like a joke. Yeah. Like I just thought you knew if he was hiring. I haven't even looked. I'm actually applying to Harmonix out in Cambridge that make rock band.
Okay.
They're hiring.
What are they doing these days?
New Rock Band, Rock Band 4.
Oh, I didn't know they were doing new. I guess it
makes sense. Just announced like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh.
I don't. I for someone that is like really into video games, I'm really out of the loop on anything like game industry related.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, all I do is I check Gama Sutra and I check The Escapist every day, and otherwise all I'm doing is program.
How are you working on? How do you go to Kama Sutra after all the I would think all the Gamersgate stuff, you would be like completely against Kama Sutra.
It's like one is a lot of the Gamergate stuff is that's just goofy cultural war stuff,
Well, it definitely has become that to a certain degree.
But I just I go there for technical stuff. I was never hardcore on any of this Gamergate stuff. I mean, I'm not even going to make any. I'm not going to make any comments because of the fact that I'm actively looking for work in the industry. But I don't know.
Because the industry is very divided at the moment.
Well, it's interesting. It really is kind of. So from when I talk to people that are in the industry, this has actually come up. I don't bring it up because I just don't want to, but yeah, it's pretty divided, and it doesn't. I get
the impression
it doesn't work towards getting anything finished. It only works towards keeping stuff from getting finished. So I just avoid that. Now Gama Sutra. So Gama Sutra, I want to make a distinction too. Is there's a lot of blogs hosted on there that are, in my opinion, varying quality. There's a lot of stuff on there though that's really good. Stuff that's actually directly originating from the site proper. It's really good. And I'm not going to throw any baby out with the bathwater because there's some, crappy or not even crappy. Let's just say a blog of some I find politically, questionable. For example, if somebody's a really good engineer, I don't really care about their politics because I'm working with them in engineering capacity, or if someone's an artist or anything. I mean, it's not that politics isn't important. It's just in a lot of situations, it's just unnecessary crap.
Well, a lot of the culture war stuff, goes back to when they had the Mozilla, COO or something like that. He made, a donation to, Prop 8 in California. Did that have anything to do with him actually being a good COO of Mozilla? Not really, but apparently it was, it was one of those things. I agree. One thing shouldn't lead to another. I don't know. I guess I was sitting in.
Well, he was. I think that guy was railroaded. To be honest.
Oh yeah, he was. But
it
goes. A lot of the. I don't know. I guess I look at the culture war stuff, and when I sit in church sometimes, and I listen to homilies, and we talk about the ideals of Christianity. I know, and Christianity obviously doesn't always live up to its ideals, but at the same point, ideals are important because it's what you strive for. And the ideals of love thy enemy, and things like we treat others the way we want to be treated, the golden rules kind of things. And I would say we as humans we always fall short of these things. But then I look at the other side, and I look at the feminist side of the things. How does feminism treat its enemies? Well, it treats them really shitty. It's actually you have feminists who are murdering their unborn male children because we can't possibly hope that they could never become one of the sisterhood. That doesn't strike me as loving thy enemies. Like,
Yeah, no, this is mental.
And yes, their greater goals of striving for social justice and equality is good, but where does social justice and individual justice collide? I mean, these are not always mutual goals. And what's more important to you? The link I just sent you, Steve, was the Steve or Chris Robertson's company.
Oh, this is his company?
Yeah, apparently that's what the internet tells me.
Oh, yeah. Weird. Okay. So this is looking like a.
Looks like a general web firm, but.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out there.
I don't know if that's who. I don't know if that's who's actually developing Star Citizen, but we're looking at Digital Anvil, which is associated with Chris Robertson. Or Chris Roberts. Sorry, there's no Robertson. I've never really followed it. Were you ever big into Wing Commander and stuff? Like, I was a little too young to really be caught up.
I was too. I was too young for it. I was too young for anything Wing Commander.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone back and played a little of it later, but I feel like I don't have a proper sense of perspective about it. It's the hassle is playing anything older is even if it's not just the stuff isn't fun, it's that there's a lot of mechanical changes. Things have just been facilitated by technology, and I don't know. I had trouble getting into it, and I feel like if I played it originally, it would have been easier to do because I'm good at playing lots of older games, but I just couldn't get into it when I played it. It's worth a replay, especially because I'm trying to go through and replay all kinds of or originally play. It's all kinds of older games that I missed out on. Just to fill in my gap in understanding.
I think, obviously we live in a world where there's obviously a lot of emphasis on older movies, especially in the art community, which I know you were a part of for a long time.
Yeah.
Appreciation of older but older games don't seem to get that same level of appreciation.
They can't because it's not apples to oranges.
No,
it's not apples to apples. It's apples to oranges because in the case of an old movie, the mode of interaction with it actually doesn't really change. The closest I can think of to that is maybe a silent movie, but even then, the mode of interaction is pretty much the same. The difference is just an expectation about
how we interact with films hasn't really changed.
About what's being
films
presented.
Were created.
Yeah, no, you sit down, you stare at it. The biggest change. I mean, if you want to get into those kind of talks, there's something to be said, for example, for things like the rise in home viewing and the way because the rise in home viewing changed the way certain movies were shot, for example, or in terms of shot composition. There's things like that did have an impact, right? You get less of some of these big panoramic kind of sweeping films for a while there because movies were being watched so often on square television sets and so much money was coming out of there. Now that's kind of going away again because the TVs are all rectangular. But I mean, there's something to be said.
And getting bigger.
Kind of
let's be honest.
Exactly. And there's something to be said for the way that the media, the television as sort of a secondary source of viewing affected how movies were made, but not really ultimately the way that you interacted with them. In the case of games, it's really different.
Yeah. Well, and I was listening to one of my podcasts last week, and they had a film, like a film, not a film festival manager on, and he was talking like how do you choose films for a film festival, and he was talking about how he needs you have to be judicious in it, and the fact that what he likes isn't what his crowd likes, and to me it's interesting. From the perspective of a short film festival, what are we interested in? What are we presenting? How does that medium different from the general medium of film? And how is it unique to, our individual audience in our neighborhood versus every other film festival? Because, film festivals don't always. The thing I really loved about like his conversation was talking about how you figure out what your audience is. If his first comment was, if you start out with your byline that this game or this film is for everyone, you've already lost. Like you don't know
Oh yeah,
what you already have. You have to start by realizing that not every film, and I think this is one of the things where I think games have kind of started to fail. Not every game is for every person. And we have to realize that, and I think this is like, if we'd come to this realization, this would solve a lot of the culture war stuff. Not that the culture war stuff would go away, but I think there would be a realization like the people who like the first person shooters aren't for the people who are the feminist. I mean, like these are different things for different audiences. Just like a romantic comedy isn't for your average 20 to 25-year-old male. I mean, for the
exactly.
most part. I mean, different things have different audiences, and realizing that different things have different audiences. But obviously, a marketing perspective is going to say, well, we want the widest base possible, but that's also self defeating because, well, okay, so we're advertising this everywhere, but then are we hitting the people we actually want, or are we hitting people? Or are we just kind of like, is it just kind of buckshot where maybe we'll hit something, maybe we won't. Chances are we're not going to kill anything though.
The thing that makes me upset is that people that really get upset about the production of these things
Mm.
always make arguments that are outside of the sphere of economics, right? It's that these kind of things are made because they make their money back and a lot
Mm-hmm.
more. Because this is not cheap. I mean, it's not cheap to produce. The same is true of movies too, right? When people
Oh
sit and
yeah.
complain that the movies have gotten too dumb. It's like you might say they've gotten too dumb, and quite frankly, I think most of them are really dumb. A lot of money.
But
And
I mean,
you
that's
know,
also a
and
function
movie and
of.
movie studios, for as big as those budgets are, movie studios are frequently in any given sort of fiscal year, maybe two bad movies, like two big flops away from failing. I mean, they're not
But
sitting on a
they're
huge
not
cash.
engaging in good economic activity themselves though, because good economic behavior would say, you know, minimize your risk by spreading it out over a wide number of films. Yes, you'll make probably less. Maybe you'll make less money, but you'll also lose less money on the whole. Like you're not going to like one bad film isn't going to cost you. But when I mean, you look at something like we have the Avengers movie coming, Avengers 2 coming out here. Avengers 2, most of its cost is going to be in this ridiculous CGI budget.
Can you hear
And
me?
you could. Yes, I can still hear you, Steve.
Sorry. My mic has a light inside and it just died, and I just want to make sure that the mic itself didn't just die
Nope,
on me.
you
Okay,
you
good.
still
Okay,
sound
cool, cool.
great.
Great,
No, I
great.
was gonna
Okay.
say, if you didn't hear me, I was saying that look at the budget of Avengers 2. Avengers 2 is probably gonna be like a
Yeah.
$300 million movie. It'll probably make that back and with then some. The problem with Avengers 2 is that probably a good. Would you say? I'd say at least $100 million, or probably close to $150 million of that budget is just CGI cost, like paying
Yeah.
programmers, paying programming houses, and it's because you're doing it on really short time schedules without lots of plan. I mean, there's obviously a healthy degree of planning, but they'll be doing CGI shots in this film probably up until within a week or 2 weeks of it actually releasing, because there's that much CGI work to be done on it.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Oh, I mean, it'll look great, but I mean,
As I completely
what?
failed to immediately address the point you're making. But
Oh yeah, but it always goes
no,
back to
yeah,
the my barbershop always had this on his wall, and I know it's been all over other places, but there's the whole good, fast, cheap, pick two kind of mentality.
oh yeah,
Well, they want good, they want fast, basically on a relatively short time schedule in this regard.
yeah,
That means it's not cheap,
right,
and I know with Stargate Universe when it was still airing, this is going back almost
yeah.
5 years now, but they were on really long. The way they kept their costs down is they filmed way ahead of time, and they basically let their CGI studio, slot them in when they had free time, which meant
Yeah.
they got good quality and it was relatively cheap, but it took a long time to get.
Problem is
You know,
is that that doesn't work. I can't speak to, well. I will speak to movies maybe a little bit, but more like the gaming is if you consider the rate at which the technology is changing, fast is mandatory, right? That's a fixed one
Yes.
because something has to be out sooner. So then, right, what are your, do you want bad? No, it's because it's got to be good, or it's not going to sell, right? So
I
you're
mean,
already locked
there's the
into that
expectation of good
scenario.
CGI no matter what now.
Yeah, there's not really a triangle because one of those is now, fast is mandatory, right? Because of circumstances dictated by the technologies involved, etc.
Yeah,
That in
I
the
don't know if
future,
it's
in the
not
future that might be
necessarily mandatory because
for
they don't
certain kinds
have
of things.
to.
Yeah,
But I mean, they could. I mean, theoretically, they could spend an extra year making or the next Avengers movie and have it come out next year rather than this year, and their cost would probably go down by $50 million.
sure. Is that really
And
worth
what
it to
would
us?
it be based on the same
Because,
film? Yes, it would. But
yeah, but then you've already lost out a whole year of all the other marketing stuff, right? All the
mm-hmm.
all the toys and things you can sell, all that
Oh
kind of
yeah, I
stuff,
mean,
all those
your fifty
ancillary
million dollars
properties.
cost in this
It, it
environment. $50 million cost is nothing because you're just going to because that is you're going to recap that for this film.
right, exactly.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
And
not
in,
being
and in
skeptical
gaming,
of
it's
you.
even worse because you can't slow down, right? Because it's I mean ultimately to oversimplify, it's all CG.
Well, yes,
On
it's in the
some level,
problem
right?
in the problem in gaming, like the old Duke Nukem problem. The Duke Nukem problem was for a long
That
time
your
is that they
game
would get about
sucked.
half. Well, yes, the game sucked, but also it was like they just wouldn't pick they went from engine to engine to engine. Like
Yeah,
the development cycle was long enough that they a new engine had come along, which they rather than using an older engine, which there's always an argument that says maybe you're better off using an older engine you understand better than a new engine you don't understand at all. But
yeah.
that being said, new engines kept coming along and they kept rebuilding the game from the ground up, and it just kept spinning its wheels.
It was yeah. That was just poorly managed. I mean, that was just.
Well, yeah,
I mean, seriously. Once Gearbox took it over, how long did that thing take to get out? Like less than a
I
year
think
after
like yeah,
Gearbox
6 months
bought
or
it.
something.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it was
Well,
just
the
really
theory at the
poorly
time was always
managed.
that they were finally going to just admit that just get it out so they could start pushing new Duke Nukem IP. Even maybe they are behind the scenes. I don't know.
I would love to see Gearbox make more Duke Nukem. It would be excellent, right? Because that's right up their alley. You ever play Borderlands,
I have
the
not played
series?
Borderlands.
I think you'd like it. Actually, it feels a lot more
Yeah,
like WoW than you'd think.
I mean that's not like one of those things where
In a
which
good
I'm
way.
not
That's
against it.
complimentary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean I'm not against it. I mean I know a lot of WoW players who really like it, so
yeah.
just I have
It plays
never
a lot like
chose
it
to.
plays a lot like an MMO, just with guns. Uh, yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. I recommend it, but um, yeah. But I haven't played. By the way, there's like the pre-sequel. Like it was made by a different studio. I haven't played that one. I'm just talking about the first two. Anyways, um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So they're just right. So in terms of production, you're stuck, right? Because you can release something that's a little old looking, but you can't go too far back. I mean, it can't be too
Oh
old. It
yeah,
looks
I mean
too
that's an argument
too
for a studio having it. If you're a big enough studio, having your own in-house engine that you tend to use, and you can update it as you go and not completely break everything rather than
exactly
using
right.
somebody else. Then again, I don't feel like I've been playing. Most recent game I played is Dragon Age Inquisition, and I think
How's it?
they're using the Frostbite engine. And it looks good. I
Yeah, I think that is Frostbite.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Frostbite engine.
Yeah,
And I don't know anything about the Frostbite engine, but I know it is I've been told it's the Frostbite engine, and like it looks fine and it does everything. I think the advantage of not making your own engine is that you don't spend forever trying. You don't spend all that time developing an engine. I know that was Japanese game studios were notorious for that. Like every Final Fantasy game has its own new game engine. Like, why does it have a new game engine? Because they can. Like, because they apparently really love building code. Like, okay,
yeah. Who knows? That's a whole other universe over there.
yeah,
Um, Incidentally, that kind of I think has come back partly to bite him in the butt with the new one, which hasn't been out since. when was the last Final Fantasy released? It was the online one. What, 14?
14. I mean, 14 came out, I think, 2 years, 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
I got in
and that
on that when
was,
it first started,
and then they
and
had
then
their re-release about 18 months ago or so.
yeah, my guild imploded, and then I quit.
Mm.
Um,
I tried to
and
play 11 once, and because I had a friend who was playing it at the time, and it just did
mm-mm,
nothing at all for me.
yeah, no, no, there. I haven't played any. I haven't played since
I hear it's
10.
good.
I didn't play 10, and I haven't played any since 10,
Hmm.
but excluding 14. So there's been three of those I haven't played, and then some of the older ones I haven't played. Like I haven't played the first three, but the big ones
My
I always used to play on were 4, 5, 6, and then to a lesser extent 7. Those were my jam. And then
what's
I
funny
went
about
back and
that?
played 8 and 9 later on emulator.
Yeah,
Many years later, and truthfully, I can't remember anything about them. It just kind of came and went
I
because
never
I
played
played them just for completion's
two
sake.
or 4 and 6 on their like on the SNES. Though
Mm-hmm.
I own an SNES that works, and just I haven't pulled it out in years. And in fact, I gave most of my games to Scott a while ago because
Don't
I
worry about
wasn't
it. Play it
using
on
them.
emulator.
Well, I played 4 and 6 on the emulator, and it was fine. I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but I never played any of the others because I didn't have a PlayStation. And eventually I got an Xbox, and then they had what 10? No, it was 13. 13 was the one
Yeah,
that was on the
13.
Xbox, and I never, I just never got around to
That's the one I heard was. That's the one I heard was like all those games. They're really beautiful looking.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean though
but
that's the thing about Final Fantasy
that
games; they
one
do look good.
mechanically, from what I've heard, I haven't played that one. I've heard that in terms of game design, it's purely linear, and
Hmm. Yeah,
the way the combat mechanic is designed is it really requires very minimal participation. That it basically will just play itself, and you won't lose. So there's just something like mechanically not sort of I don't want to say not correct, but mechanically the way it's designed is not appealing to a lot of people, and that was a big complaint. I didn't even try to play. I couldn't play 10 because of all the cutscenes. So I was really stoked to play 10, and then I was in college. I was a freshman in college, and 10 had hit, and then which tells you incidentally how long it's been for 15, right? That they basically produced 1 to 10 throughout the course of my childhood and teen years, and now as an adult we've only gotten 4 more. But um, anyways, 10 had hit when I was in college, and
yeah, I remember because you and I were
uh,
both in college at the same time, and yeah, I remember like a lot of people really liked 10. I mean, other than what's his face being kind of not the most enthusiastic
but you
Titan.
couldn't skip the cutscenes.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like the story cutscenes. I mean the combat cutscenes, like use a
The
power, woo, anime stuff. Use
it
a
was like,
power,
and it was like these
woo,
like
anime stuff. I
ridiculous
got
like
stuff to
level
do.
break like
I
30
have stuff
seconds.
to do. Yes, I have stuff to do. The only
It was
person
a
I've ever seen
it,
played that game so much they dropped out of college. And it's like, congratulations, you put up with the cutscenes. I don't have that kind of time. I'm actually in a STEM degree program, you know. And years
it
later, it's like I don't want to because okay. So I was replaying Link to the Past recently, which I couldn't
mhm.
finish. Play. I was trying to play a bunch of these Super Nintendo games when I was younger, just for inspiration, because most of my stuff right now has been technical. Nothing I'm making is like
Yeah,
game, quote unquote. It's more like levels and demos and stuff like that. Um, just that I can point to someone and say, "Hey, look, I can make stuff." It's kind of a
oh
stepping
yeah,
stone to actually get
gotta
into
start
stuff.
somewhere. You gotta have a
But,
portfolio.
yeah, exactly. And because I really don't really kind of want to be an indie dev. I want to go get a job in like
Mhm.
studio and just go work my 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and
You don't
make
want to, you
make,
want
make
a
things.
studio
But
that's not gonna treat you like garbage is what you're saying.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the 12/7. Yeah, or seven
Yeah.
twelves, right? The not garbage. I've
What
worked
was it
7/12.
like?
I've
EA
worked
was doing that to people years ago, or if some, I forget, it
well.
was a big
A
studio.
lot of places still do, but I've worked in 2 startups, so I've never worked 7/12s. I've worked 6/12s regularly. It's just it's okay if you like what you're doing. It's just I never really was behind any of our products, so it just starts to drain on you, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's not fun, you don't care about it, and now you're working a lot. And I didn't have any equity, so it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah. No, I don't disagree completely.
And
It sucks to
I
hate
do a
your
lot of
job.
and I was doing a lot of I played them on an emulator because I got rid of my Nintendo Super Nintendo years ago, and it's
It's
like
really no
you
reason not just to steal it at this point. I mean,
know,
that's probably
like
that's a horrible attitude, but I
as
mean,
many hours as I've put into those games over the years,
yeah.
and having purchased them, it's like I'm sorry I didn't
You
buy
own
your
legal copies of them at one point in your life,
re-release.
right?
Yeah, that makes it like legit as far as I'm concerned. I'm not stealing. I'm just like literally
Well,
here.
you are
I'm,
stealing,
wait,
but
wait, wait, wait,
let's not call it something that it's not. It is
I'm,
stealing,
I'm
but
sitting on a high
it's not a big
I'm
deal.
on a high horse. Do you know why I don't have a Super Nintendo or any of my games? Because I gave them to a children's hospital, to the cancer ward.
Oh, that's nice. And they probably
I'm
sold
down on that
3
raw
weeks
without
later.
any guilt whatsoever. Anyways, point being is I was playing them, and one thing I noticed when I was playing Link to the Past, and really a lot of these games is when I was younger and something I had to redo something, I always thought about it in terms of the game because I didn't have anything else going on in my life. And so I could really put lots of, I mean, I could just sink into these games because I was so young, you know? It's like that or go outside and be teased by kids. So it's like, I'll play again, you know? And as an adult, every time anything happens and I'm affected and I have to restart something, I think of it in terms of my external life, and especially in terms of my ever approaching death, right?
And let's
So
be positive right here.
so suddenly anything that causes me to like have to restart and lose progress, like feel like I've lost like substantially lost progress,
Hmm.
I can't play it anymore. And anything that requires too much backtracking or time syncing, I can't do anymore because I see it. I'm like, I could do this or I could do like these 5 other things I need or slash want to do. It's like I'm just gonna go do those. And I think that's generally kind of developed in gaming is there's not a lot of things where there's a lot of necessary repetition outside of MMOs, and that's why I really
Yeah.
can't play MMOs. I feel like all the people that are cool with that are in MMOs, and it's okay to be cool with it. I'm not. And a lot of games, it's just think how quickly like a game, like a match in like I don't know, Team Fortress or like Call of Duty or something lasts. Battlefield. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
last that long. And it's like, okay, I've done my stuff. I'm over. Those are especially great because since you're constantly just respawning, there's no notion of any loss. Nothing is. You're not losing anything. It's 100% gain through that entire process. Whereas a lot of these older games, just for technical limitations, it's always redoing. And I was just constantly kind of hitting the save state button. Like what F
Yeah.
whatever. And
Well,
I
I remember. I
forgot
mean,
to
I
hit it once, and I had to redo part of a dungeon. This is like Dungeon One in Link to
mhm.
the Past, right? I mean, I have not been playing this game very long. When I've been Dungeon One, and I don't hit the save state, and I get killed by a thing, by one of these Cyclops monsters you have to shoot arrows at, and I have to redo it. What?
What?
Redo it? I've already
Oh.
done it. And it's kind of my attitude. I get real like haughty, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because I would have to. I keep mashing. Truth, I just kept mashing the function key. I just kept mashing the function key. More shallowly, I tried to replay Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And
I've never actually played Ocarina of Time.
I
I have a
I
GameCube and I
recommend
have a version of it that plays on there, but I've never actually sat down to play it.
this is me sounding like okay. This is me, the equivalent of me just being the most like shallow human being you could ever imagine.
Yeah, so no real difference at all. That's what you're saying.
Shit. Anyway, uh, uh, I'm better than I used to be. I'm better than I used to be. That's
I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You're
anyways,
not
but
that bad.
but but I tried to play Ocarina of Time, and everybody looked like they were a balloon animal because the graphics are so bad.
Hmm.
I would say they're bad. They were really good for the system and the time for consoles. They're not bad. It's just
And for
they're
those
they're
SD TVs that
they're
didn't
so
really
dated.
matter.
They look like balloon animals. I just couldn't do it. I'm And there
I
was
believe
stuff
there
that
has been like a high def remake of Ocarina of Time where there was talk of doing it a couple of years ago.
I should try that because I just couldn't play it. It just I couldn't, and I felt bad that I couldn't play it because it's good. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and Link to the Past was just something I played to death. It was a combination of having, played it to death. I was only doing it for analytical reasons, and I just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't put up that particular mechanic that was not unique to that game, right?
Yeah,
It was just unique to it, or particular to its era. But I felt bad about not being able to play Ocarina of Time because it's not bad.
it's still a
I have
relatively
I
unique
have played
mechanic.
it to death, you know. I mean, I've beaten Link to the Past like 4 or 5 times as a kid. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't played it to death, but I just couldn't get into it because of the graphics, and this is what made me feel bad. And I have kind of the same problem with most of the 3D N64 titles. I have the same problem because it's sort of this in between where once you get to the GameCube, it's past that hurdle where even though they look older, they look acceptable. It's sort of this. It's this kind. And when you go to the like Super Nintendo, it's all
It's like
2D.
that
And
Super Mario 64 kind of
it's like
problem. Like it
yeah,
just
it's like the
doesn't
peak
look
of the
quite right.
yeah. And then there's this interstitial period where the 3D's not up to par, and you're just coming off this excellent. I mean, really like sort of the pinnacle of sort of 2D game art, and then it's like, oh yeah,
Well,
I
I
could
mean that's
play
the
that.
thing about pixels. I mean,
And the
pixel art
controls are
looks
weird too
nice.
because stuff's not standardized yet, and you've got that goofy controller. And I understand why they made it, but it's almost like a control system that exists to circumvent certain limitations in the software. It's kind of a weird thing. Because as soon as you get the software improved, suddenly the systems get easier again, or the control schemes get normal again. And I just can't do it. I can't do anything from that generation. I can't. I feel bad about it. And this applies to like PS1 as well. I had because they PS1 has the same issue, which is it's just I can't. I skipped it. I skipped too much of that when I was younger, because around the time all that stuff hit, I got real hard into PC gaming and a lot of strategy gaming and RPG gaming. I didn't really kind of come back around until around like PS2, Xbox era. So I kind of just missed. I missed all of the PS1 64 era, and then I didn't get the GameCube because I just didn't like
Yeah,
it.
see, I was similar like that. I got a GameCube late in its life just because I wanted to play this weird bongos game.
What game?
But there's a Donkey Kong bongos game.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and so that was the reason I got a GameCube.
How was it?
But other than that, I did had no reason. And then I bought the
Well,
Mega
what's
Man.
it? Hey, roll back, roll back. How was the Bongos game? I know the
It
game
was
you're talking about.
fun. Yeah, it was good fun. Like it's a classic party game. Like it's
Yeah,
awesome with with somebody else, and without someone else, it's like whatever.
I knew
But
someone that actually played the Bongos. Really nice guy, super Lutheran guy, and he would go play the Bongos at the Lutheran church. And I was always thinking, I don't know what kind of music you got there, but I really hope that it doesn't fit the Bongos at all, and you're just there just jazzing it up, and like everything is like, or Fortress is
everyone
the Mighty
everyone
God,
has
but
all
like
it's all the traditional music, and then this guy is in the back is.
I hope so. And he was just the sweetest, nicest guy. I just hope he's just riffing on it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't want to say,
You can
because he
make
was really
anything
good
sound
at it
good.
too. He wasn't bad. He was really good. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
No, you can make anything sound good. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of bluegrass covers of like random music, and the thing I've learned is that anything can be made to sound bluegrass. A, and B, like pretty much doesn't really matter. I mean, it all sounds pretty good. I mean, at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, it has a very strict form. It's like poetry. There's a
It
very
doesn't. It doesn't. I mean,
right. It's like blues.
uh,
You've got to
do you have?
really do you think there's a lot of variation?
I would say. I mean, the key
I say
thing
this because
to
my
it.
dad likes bluegrass, and maybe it's because I don't listen to it hard enough. And he's dragging
Mhm.
me to bluegrass festivals and stuff too, and it just sounds like the exact same, like 3 to 5 songs over and over
Well,
again with
that's what I
different
love
words.
about like I don't actually like all that much real bluegrass, but bluegrass like the weirdest one out there is There's a bluegrass cover to Gundam Style. Yeah. It's amazing. It's just one of those things. Like there's British bands, there's Southern bands, there's Canadian bands, there's German bands that all do these. To me, it seems like you need a cello, you need a banjo, and the rest of it's kind of whatever you want.
Just that
fiddle.
banjo, and then you just start hearing do
Well,
has,
and the
do
cello
has
is
me.
yeah, and the cello is important because you need that string flavors, and so you need kind of that mix of string and preferably someone who can sing with kind of a slightly southern style, even if they're not really southern. So
My dad core enough that isn't just upset at like sort of pop country music, but
it's terrible.
he's just kind of upset at like he was upset before pop country music hit,
When he took
because
Western out of country western
because
music.
that was inauthentic to him.
Mhm.
It's like which is kind of badass. Like my dad is, but if you ever listen to his record collections, it's just like all this like outlaw like rebel country music. It's like
like
it's like the
Waylon
Hag
Jennings
and yeah, Waylon
Cash,
Jennings and Chris
Willie
Christopherson and all that
Nelson.
stuff,
Yep.
and then oh yeah, Willie Nelson, yeah, and then bluegrass music,
Hmm.
which is like that's real country music. It's like I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with you at all. And then every so often I'll see him like turn on CMT, and it'll be some
And
like I'm just
just
going
be
to name somebody.
disgusted.
I'm just going to name someone, and I'm not attacking them musically.
Hmm.
This is just someone that I saw on TV. Okay, that I okay. Jason Aldean, popular country singer.
I'm
My dad's turned on, and
this.
Jason Aldean was on, and my dad just gets this look of just utter contempt. And I just watching the video for an extended period of time, just, just, you can almost see like his hate
Like
building,
the veins
like
just
like
showing
it's
up in his
charged
neck.
up, yeah, like he's got to charge up his hate, and when his hate meter gets high enough, he can change the channel, and he's okay. He just needed to get a full dose of how much he hates modern country music to be able to move on, and it was just perfect because I
That's
don't disagree
beautiful.
with him. I'm not even into country music, and I don't disagree with his position. you know, Mostly because when I was a teenager, I was listening like the Clash obsessively, and to me, like most of that country music he listens to is just the Clash for people from the South. Like
Yeah.
it's no different to me.
Well,
You know,
there's an argument that says, Southern rock is really just, the South going through a lot of the rebel movement that, the rest of the country was going through. It's just their kind of own take on it.
oh yeah, for sure. Because where I live, I'm in Illinois, but I'm in
Mhm.
the
You're
far
basically
southern
in the
southern.
South.
Oh, I
You're
mean,
more
we
in the
fought for,
South than I
fought for
am in, Southern Iowa.
no, we fought for the South. Yeah, we fought for the South. We had slaves.
That whole Mason Dixon line didn't really apply to Southern Illinois, I take it.
We fought for. Um, yeah, well, when the Civil War hit, we mostly fought for Tennessee. My
Yeah.
family fought for the Confederacy for Tennessee. Um, the whole area was we just didn't listen. We
Well,
just
you
ignored
said
the rest of Illinois. We just didn't care, and we got screwed over in Reconstruction too as a consequence. Um, this. I mean, it's definitely so. Okay, it's the South, but I don't want to say. Okay, so the South. I heard a guy I know from Southern Iowa just talk about this too. Is there's kind of a blue collar and a white collar South,
hmm
and a lot of what I wouldn't quite. I use a different term. I call it like antebellum South and hillbilly South, right? Like I'm from what he would call blue collar South, right? It's like where everybody goes joins the service, everybody likes NASCAR. It's like Jeff Foxworthy kind of place.
yeah.
Uh, Very kind of like, for the most part, a pretty sort of genial, nice place. Um, the antebellum South is very like deep South. Like if you're not from there, you're never going to be a part of there. Like extremely sort of, think very classist, extremely racist.
Hmm.
Um, doesn't share a lot of these sort of immediately kind of like comedic kind of good old boy traits. Because in the media, I find there's kind of a conflation of these two pieces. mostly because you can get kind of a lot of comedic and fun value out of this blue collar hillbilly South. You can't get out of like Faulkner South.
Yeah.
But they're two very distinct sort of geographic regions and have unique kind of histories. And I'm from this sort of hillbilly South, and we still fought for the Confederacy, but it's I don't like to call it the South because when I'm talking to people that are from the North, they get the image they get is really different. Um, it's I just tell them it's hillbilly country, which I think is a more accurate description. People driving around pickup trucks. I mean, like everywhere, like everything is like dilapidated because there's no money, and everybody is driving around like these like $40,000 like brand new pickup trucks, and I have no idea where they're getting them, And it's
Yeah.
like just meth is everywhere. Like people hoard guns. It's all like it's just like a white ghetto. It's like payday loans and like worn out Mexican restaurants and farm surplus stores, and it's like just the roads are tore up and everybody ignores stop signs. It's just it's kind of horrible, but it's kind of a
You're
what it
saying
is.
it is what it
not
is.
what
It's not.
account. Right? What's that?
It is what it is to a certain
It is what
extent.
it is, and it's very distinct from the South.
Yeah.
That said, you go a little bit south and you start to run into Waffle Houses and Captain D's, which for me are two of the signs of the that you're approaching the South proper.
The
It's
proper.
Waffle House and Captain D's, and Rebel Flags. We have some of those up here.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. I don't even remember what got us.
I
I
don't
just
know
felt
why.
I just felt the need
I'm not
to
from the
properly
South. My
define
my
not
my
my home.
origins are incredibly northern. But none of my, I mean, I'm sure I have ancestors somewhere probably in my family tree that have, were in the United States. But for the most part, my ancestry is almost entirely migrated in the 1880s. And so like my actual ties to the Civil War are nigh. So it's like okay. I mean, I don't know. I guess I've never felt any of like the traditional white guilt that's so many people in the United States clearly feel because, like, are there like I don't know. I guess I've always taken the more like why are what you I was actually discussing this with a math teacher in my neighborhood yesterday.
On a
It's like
side note,
yeah.
the descendants of the people that actually fought for the South in the Civil War don't feel white guilt either. Yeah,
I'm not surprised by that.
just tossing that out there. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that isn't the vocabulary of Northerners and people
Yes,
that move down there from the North. That is just simply not in the vocabulary
almost the
of this whole region
well,
down to the
when you
north.
look at
It
to,
just
to
doesn't
touch on
exist.
that, most of the people, you lose a war, the side that loses generally doesn't feel like doesn't tend like they tend to resentment tends to not just go away right away. I mean, and obviously it's been 150 years and it's still not going away a whole lot. And then, you can argue say this because a lot of it's because Northerners still treat Southerners like shit.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
totally.
it's like you look at a lot of the cultural biases, like the Southerners are stupid and racist and dumb. I mean, and as you say, some of these
All
are
those Nobel
justified. Some,
Prize winners in literature
yeah, yeah, but I mean, you look at the
must be
North.
dummies.
The North isn't exactly not less significantly less racist and less more intelligent. When really no, like you say, you were talking about how like there's this aspect of the Southerners who the Annabelle South as you called it like who are
Yeah.
very much against like new people moving in and they have their own culture and I
Oh
was
yeah,
and you
I
all the
can't go
whole time
down
you
there.
were thinking of that it sounds like you're describing Maine.
Yeah, I know, right?
What you say what is like diametrically opposite of like all the stereotypes of the South, but it shares a lot of those like same characteristics of like if you weren't born here you can't be a Mainer and you don't have that
Yeah.
ties to the sea that we do. We have
Oh
these
yeah.
and
Because
then not just in northeastern culture in general to certain degrees
it's
like
because they have a strong sense of local identity,
yes
which
and
I
that'd be
don't
true in
think is
both
I don't
areas.
think and again, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I know that people like to sort of crap on that because there's this idea that we're part of some if not just national but global community, et cetera, et cetera. But I think having a sense of locality and local place is important. You know, it can be bad, it can be pathological, but I think it's not inherently a bad thing.
Well, I mean, look at
I don't think it's inherently bad for an area to be suspicious of outsiders either. Quite frankly, I mean, I know a lot of people always want to spin that as a negative, but part of that too is preserving community and preserving, way of life. Now, you can raise the question whether it's worth preserving, but, just from the inside, if you put yourself inside and look out, this is like anthropologically, I mean, it makes sense. It's a completely valid attitude to have, in my opinion. I think a lot of people most people I meet are from suburbs for the most part, which are just these completely sort of artificial, generic places, and you can jump between one to another and really not miss anything because there's nothing in them to miss.
There's no community. There's no history to most of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're just these kind of like post-war.
Well, and you could say that about a lot of our cities too. I mean, a lot of our cities really, there's some city identity, especially New York, Chicago. Those kind of cities have identities that go beyond a lot of traditional. But at the same time,
yeah,
you've been to one of those cities, you've been to all the other ones. I mean, there's.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I would never put New York and Chicago as being the same place at all.
I'm not saying they're the same place, but I mean, there's aspects to a city that are very city-ish, and there are aspects to rural.
Oh yeah, I mean, because those are things that emerge out of the density of the population and.
I mean, is the Metropolitan Opera in Chicago? No, it's not. Neither is Sears Tower in New York. But I guess I do. I don't know. As one who's never really loved Chicago, but at a great degree, I've never really put much value in it.
So New York. When I left New York, okay, I flew out of LaGuardia, right, and I landed in Chicago before I made my next flight out into the kind of the Midwest proper. I've never been so happy to meet a blue collar person in my life as I was just sitting in the Chicago airport, just sitting in O'Hare. I just sat in there and just talked to I just went and found the most just Ditka loving Bears fan dude that I could find. Just some guy looks like he worked in a steel mill. Just sat down and started talking because I went out. I don't want to say I hated it, but mostly hated
New York. Did almost kill you after all.
That's why I left. That's actually why I left, because I was gonna stay, and basically I almost died, and then it's like I'm leaving. I'm done. I might go back later and see if it tries to kill me again. It wasn't just and it wasn't just one thing. It was everything. It was just like I went out there, and then I don't believe in astrology or sort of fate. But it would be like going out there, and as soon as I landed there, it was a crit fail on every roll. Every single skill check, crit fail, crit fail, crit fail. Accidentally started a fire in the hotel room I was living in. Mm-hmm. Almost got kicked out. Pneumonia. Almost got hit by cars. And I wasn't walking like some idiot either, right? It was just nuts. It was just nuts. Getting sick from food, just everything. It was horrible. But yeah, it didn't really kill me. But anyways, it's very sort of upscale, very kind of white collar place for the most part, right? At least Manhattan, which is why I was there. So I don't know. I find the vibe like Chicago is kind of like Queens a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's more blue collar, but for the most part, I wouldn't compare. They're both cities, the same way two suburbs or small towns. But
okay, so maybe
for me, Manhattan, at least for me, Manhattan and Chicago were just two completely.
So maybe the better comparison would be maybe like something like Houston to, I don't know, like Oklahoma City. Like, is there something significantly different between these two cities, or
I think Houston's got a distinct personality, though. That's the thing.
Well, so do two people. I mean, every person has a distinct personality as well. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's given. I'm not going to sound like an ass, but I think that gives people a bit too much credit. I don't even think
So,
my, I
so
don't
we're
think,
definitely in an argument about like, this city is totally got a different personality, but people are just
no, I,
generic poop that no, but nothing special about them whatsoever.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just
I don't
raising
want to
it.
sound like an ass. I'm just gonna come across that way.
No, I'm just raising you. I'm just raising. No, I'm just, what I am saying is, I think that in people in the aggregate over time,
Hmm.
frequently will produce culture. They produce distinct things. It's not like I mean, it's not
That
like you're
requires
traveling.
unique
It's not
people.
like you're traveling to like pre-industrial, I don't know, India or Asia or something. It's not like we're hopping on a jet to like Soviet Russia. I mean, I'm not saying it's completely different, right? Um, but there's distinct things. Some places more than others. You ever been to New Orleans?
I have not been to New Orleans. It's on the to-do list.
Very, very distinct.
Well,
Very
and
distinct.
that's very much a city that's born out of a different tradition because it's the French tradition rather
Yeah,
than
exactly. Right. Exactly. But
English
I'm
Dutch
just saying
tradition. Or
these places pick up stuff though. I mean, all these other cities. I mean, I don't know. Texas in general, to me, has a very distinct feel.
Texas
There's a
also has a
distinct.
very distinct culture relative to the rest of the United States. I mean,
Yeah,
you have the
exactly.
Span. It
That
has
yeah,
those Spanish
yes,
origins,
right.
which are heavily influenced by both past and current Mexican populations, in addition to the Anglo populations that have been in and out of Texas since then. And German populations, English populations, French population. I mean, pretty much everyone has had. Texas has a little bit of everything. In the
I just feel like you're
Northeast.
trying. I feel like you want to smooth over a little bit some of the amount of sort of differences between places. They're not. I mean, they're not enough that it's people can't move around and live in one or the other.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be massive culture shock. But
I
I
guess
really do feel like I feel genuinely that they're distinct. I feel like when we ignore that, I feel like we do a disservice not just those cities, but just kind of those regions in general, right?
yeah.
But it's easy to say, well, they've got 95% of things in common. It's like, yeah, but most of the stuff they have in common is stuff that's just it's just an outgrowth of sort of a modern city.
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah, that's
five
what
percent that's the interesting stuff. Again, you know what I mean? That's the interesting stuff, anyways. That's what makes them.
well, you could say
If it
that.
was if
You're
cities
making
were
the
like
argument of
50% different, it would be like going to Shanghai. It's like
mhm.
you couldn't function. You wouldn't even know what to do. There'd be buildings, they'd be tall, there'd be cars
Well,
and
and there's
stuff.
definitely an argument that says as long as you're within a same common like language zone, you can find a way to adapt. Regardless of whether because you
I
can
know I know multiple people that actually been able to navigate going to Berlin just
mhm.
because for whatever reason there's enough cultural similarity in Berlin. Right? I
Well,
haven't heard that
there's
from anyone that
we
goes to Paris,
always
but I know people that had to
we
move or
tend
live for a
to
short period in Berlin,
ignore
and they
we
just
tend to ignore the heavy German influences on our society because it's not culturally polite. Like our education system, it draws very heavily from the German traditions. Like kindergarten, it's a German word for
it's like
growing children.
directly modeled on
Yeah, and, from the
it.
um, the I forget which German the German government before
The
I
Weimar.
forget. Yeah, Von Mar. Like, we draw from that, this idea of basically,
Yeah,
the central authority, builds the children from piece by piece. That's why we have a grade system. It's why, it's frankly why our education system is often very resistant to change because it's built to be very resistant to change. Like, this is the way we
I find
educate children.
as an adult, I find the whole thing really creepy.
What? That it's an indoctrination system or what?
I mean,
That it just,
I figured that out
it's so
by around. I
amazingly.
figured that out sometime around like fifth grade. But like, no,
Mhm.
but it's just so like blatantly sort of military in its construction. Again, with clear notion of grades, of hierarchy, of authority.
I mean,
That it's
it's a system
no,
built to make
it's weird.
factory workers. I mean, we
Yeah,
program the children to. I mean, you could say militaristic as well. I mean, to respond to bells and to respond to, this is when we do
exactly.
this. This is when we do this. We have a central
All this
authority figure in every
together at the
room.
same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I mean, but then how do you
You know,
educate? But then how do you centrally educate, an entire nation of children?
it's a good question. I mean, I would
I
argue
mean,
you centrally educate them, but
well, I mean, how? I
but
mean,
the problem is that
in a time,
I don't trust families to do that. Quite frankly, I would rather in practice see more. I would like to see more emphasis put on other modes of learning,
well, I mean, I think you
especially
could
home
go
learning. I think
back
that's
to
happening
a.
though.
I mean, you could fracture the education system down. I think what we're having, especially rural America, the problem becomes, you know, having a big enough school district to meet the demands of the children so that, you can maintain a modern school setting, with, a certain number of staff and, certain classroom sizes. But I mean, when our grandparents went to school, they didn't go to, a central school. They went to these one room schoolhouses and they did okay. I mean, I don't
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if maybe that's not a model that can still exist, but I mean I don't know if it's a model that can't be resurrected in some form. Where you have
I don't mind. I would
you
be
have
happier if there was a. Okay, sorry.
I was gonna say have a model with maybe one or two teachers, taking care of 20 or so kids in a neighborhood, and then they just and where the people are is where the schools are. You build a communal school that's about the size of a house, and you just educate the kids based on your needs. And everyone's a generalist to some degree, and specialization happens. And maybe that's how you break the elementary schools down, and you probably still need to have some level of specialization at a high school level, but just because things have to be more specialized at that point because no one can have all the tools to teach English and math and science, and at least not do it effectively. I don't think. I don't know.
I mean, something I would like to see is to have a more fluid approach to the pace of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, currently, this has only gotten worse since I was in school. And you know about this, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
very very well. It's very
I don't know.
um.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, you don't think so?
No, I couldn't hear the last part of your. You
Oh,
said it's
I'm
very
sorry.
something, and then you cut off, and like that
Oh,
sounds
sorry.
very intriguing.
Sorry. It just seems like it's very no. I mean, there's things. It's very sort of clear the things you learn and the things you don't learn.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn X, Y, and Z to go to the next step up and so forth. I would rather just see a within each domain a sort of a fluid curriculum. It'd be like, okay, these are the things you need to learn. If you learn some things faster, some things slower, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's okay in this process to stop and explore stuff. If you find something that's interesting, you know, I don't want to see
I mean, I think.
requirements
I mean,
tossed. I
I
just would
mean,
like to see requirements loosened. I mean, I would like to see the grade system abolished ultimately. But then the question becomes, well, how do you effectively teach
oh, I mean,
material?
I've
And
always.
I don't know.
I mean, teaching is always very much against the whole like things like standardized testing. Like that's great. I mean, standardized testing is a fairly weak way to judge student skills. That said, what do you suggest we replace it with? Because you still need some relatively objective way of measuring whether students are learning or not. Well, the answer becomes well, do we trust teachers to actively do that? Because frankly, I
I
don't think
don't.
even as a teacher, I gotta be honest, I don't really trust the the actual teaching establishment to not to do what's in the best interest, like not to what's in their best interest.
Most of the, I had some good teachers, and I had a friend in high school whose mother was a grade school teacher, and was very dedicated teacher and a good teacher, well loved. Most of the teachers I had were not terribly good. They were at best people who were in there just getting the paycheck. At worst, they were sort of the burned out teacher who I assume the burned out teachers were the ones that started out as the best ones. I don't know if this is true, but I have a hypothesis. It's the best teachers that that end their career some of the worst when they finally just snap under the pressure of the
When
system.
they just give up.
And yeah, and then they're just the husks. and there's nothing, there's nothing left to do. It's too late to change careers. And so, I ran into quite a few of those. When I got into the high school level, I just found the primary driver was just a lack of competency. I was just really struck by just if you took away the teacher's manual, my science teacher, we had a science teacher taught chemistry and physics.
Mm-hmm.
Great, great. I remember we switched biology teachers. I could tell one knew what they were doing and one wasn't because the first one couldn't answer any questions that weren't immediately in the teacher's manual. Take it away and they just floundered. The other one who came in was somebody that had dropped out of a master's program in genetics and didn't know what to do, and like, I'll just become a teacher. Yeah. This happened with biology, just sit and just talk extensively about whatever biological thing you had a question about. And eventually be like, oh, well, I don't know the answer. It's in this book. Okay. For the most part, it seems like they were educated up to the minimum level of competency required to cover the material in the book, but not anymore. So with any questions that go out of that scope aren't properly handled,
Well, here's like my education program I can speak to.
Sure.
I mean, I was not taught to be a math teacher. I was taught how to be I was given general teaching training, and I was never given any specific teaching, like how do you be a good math teacher or a bad math teacher. Like that to me seems like
wouldn't
that seems like a huge oversight.
The main thing you learn.
That's what I thought, but apparently it's not. Like why? I mean, why am I not getting? Like I would think I need this stuff because otherwise, how do I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do? And it's I mean it's.
Did you just sit down and watch Dangerous Minds over and over again on loop?
No, I mean it wasn't even that. It was just normal. It was just like a lot of it's just kind of the general like indoctrination stuff. Like we have to, make sure and give every student needs to have your intrinsic learning potential and. Here's you get a lot of general learning strategies, which aren't inherently bad. I mean, I don't think, like I said, I don't think it was a bad thing to do. I just thought it was one of those things where it felt like their priority wasn't for me to be a good teacher. Their priority wasn't that they didn't want me to be a good teacher. Their priority just was like they just gave no fucks at all about math. Because, and in fairness, none of them, like we had of a department of 9 people, four of them were special educations people, which is fine. It's a small private university. Yeah. And then everyone else, and then I think we had maybe 2 with high school backgrounds. Yeah, and everyone else was middle school, elementary.
Yeah.
I mean, so like, how were any of us ever going to, get anything from that?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have the tools to teach us because they themselves. And so, to me, it seems like more of a lacking of like, how are you an accredited? When they had their accreditation, they got knocked on this kind of hard because they didn't have any specialization in any of these areas. But they've been doing this for 30 years or so, and it apparently had not been an issue. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's just one of those things. And that's not to say I think I'm a bad math teacher. I think my content knowledge is fine. I think, as you say, like my growth comes out of physics and astronomy and things like that, and I'm always happy to rap about that stuff with the kids. But I mean, realistically, you want me to tell you like, what are the primary theories of teaching math education today? Frankly, I couldn't tell you. I can tell you like the general math, the teaching strategies I was taught, and I can tell you what I've seen other math teachers do, which is usually a good, grounding level for what works and what doesn't work. But on a whole, I'm not sure what to tell you.
Walk in one day in death metal face paint and just yell at the children.
Just
yell everything. Negative 3 plus minus the square root of 4.
I do have some kids who are metal fans. I know that. Uh, I don't think most of them would be really into that, but like
They will be once you're done with it.
the 5 or 6 kids who are metal fans, I'm sure would appreciate that.
Nice. Those are the ones you got. Those are the kids you got to reach. Because of all
Actually,
the kids in the math class,
those are not the kids I'm worried about. The kids I'm worried about are the kids who literally do nothing. Like I just have a certain I have a percentage of like kids who just like despite my best efforts, they just do nothing. And it's like, why are you? What can I do
see,
to help you?
this is where our personalities differ in that
Mm-hmm.
you're not just in personality, but also in sort of occupational requirement. You have to care about these children. These are the kind of children that I would just find some excuse to send off to war and then forget about them. Like, because I don't have the bandwidth to care. You know, it's like if a kid can't muster up the energy, I got a lot of sympathy for kids that have issues or kids that struggle, that are trying, that have learning
And
problems, all this
as
sort
a
of stuff.
parent will tell you, there are a lot of kids with that too.
Yeah, there are. Like, there really are. But the kids that just don't care about anything, oh, I don't know, I don't really care. It's like,
Hmm.
just leave. Just go do whatever. Just go sit in the corner. I don't even care. Just leave me alone. I don't have the bandwidth for you. You know,
Well,
and because
I mean, it's
I
different.
mean,
Man,
they don't get
like
better as adults.
but my mandate is from a state level. Like, why am I being hired? My job is to help every single student. And so,
Oh, I know.
I mean,
It's why
you know,
I
and
got a
that's
lot of
not to say,
respect for teachers, and I can't be one, but I got a lot of respect for them.
you know, it's a hard and it's like, you know, often emotionally draining. Like to work
I
with
can only
students
imagine.
and to like,
You're basically a
what do
social
I
worker.
what do I need to do to help you? And like what do we need to do to you know, and I work with the counselors as much as I can, as much as they have time to work on these things. Like, what do we need to do to make this work? I mean, you know, call parents when you can get a hold of them. It's, you know, and you know, you feel bad for kids today because most of them aren't coming out of homes where they're actually, you know, most of them don't have, you know, two parents. You know, not even speaking to just like the original mom, original dad. I'm just talking like just two parents, regardless of whether the same
Yeah.
gender or different genders, whatever. Like, just to get like, you know, because you know, life's complicated and you know it takes a lot to raise children. I mean, I think
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
often
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
you know, it's lost on people like how much it is to raise children, and if you don't have both parents, you know, even you know, and I think
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you have a lot of children or one or two children, just the fact that you have two parents there that are there to be helpful to those children, that is a buffer for them, you know, and it's a buffer, you know, not to say one parent can't do it, but there's no buffer with one parent. Like that parent
So,
either cuts it or
mhm.
doesn't, cuts the gravy or doesn't.
You know, my brother, he divorced, and he and his wife have joint custody. She remarried. He didn't. He's had to have family consistently kind of help him out. Just, just stuff like he has to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like what does he do when there's, something happened at school and they get out early or a kid's sick? Sometimes he
Yep.
can't get out of work. And then what do you do? I mean, just little stuff. He
Yeah.
needs help. Or he's gone to work by like he's out the door at 6. Well, kids don't go to school until 8.
7:30 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah, like what do you do? What How do they get to school? You
No,
know,
it's
it's
complicated.
yeah, yeah, it is. It's rough. My aunt was a single parent. It was brutal. Um, yeah, it's tough. I don't know.
And you know, and you just look at the number of, you know, I think you know, societally, obviously, we live in a society of values, individual more than values, you know, the greater good, and you can say that has its advantages and its disadvantages, but the disadvantage is that, you know, people choose to end relationships that, yeah, you know, obviously if there's violence or something involved, that you know those are relationships that should end. But even if it's just a relationship where I'm just not into you as much as I once was, you know, well, you have children. You know, there's an obligation there to at least see those kids out the door. You know, and if at that
Mm-hmm.
point you say, okay, we did our job, we did our roles to society, we got these kids through school because, and to the point where they can be self-sufficient, or at least more self-sufficient than they were. Okay, you want a divorce, that's fine. But I don't know, and that's how do you instill that in generations of people that are basically been told that you are the one, you are the greatest. You don't have to give two fucks about anybody else because whatever you want, whatever you feel, that's the most important thing because your want.
Oh yeah. Well,
It's that mentality of everyone should just be happy. It's like, well,
yeah, no, well, that's just
reality is
dumb
that
stuff.
we can't all be happy. We can't all be happy all the time. So
Just no, dude. Seriously, I think about this stuff a lot, and it weighs on me.
mm-hmm.
And my own private solution is just to cut myself out of the equation. You know,
Just to
it's
live in
just
isolation from everything
well,
else.
not to. I mean, not to live in isolation, but stuff like, I have no interest in getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I would like to have kids, but it's got to be absolutely the right person, which isn't like it isn't like they're like a Victoria's Secret model. It's
Yeah,
it's just they've got to just not they've just got to not
they got to
have
understand
just
you for who you are.
no, I just mean I just got to trust them to not be
Oh.
just completely selfish and stab me in the back, right? No, I have a really really low opinion of contemporary society for reasons that you're dictating, right? Which is that people are for the most part soft, they're cowardly, they're lazy, they're entitled. People don't like to work. They don't want to suffer. They don't want to, they don't want to go through anything to get to where they need to be. And I found that there's a not big, but there's a growing kind of pushback against that. I have found some consolation, though I won't attach myself to it with some of these. I don't want to say men's rights people because that's a kind of a big tent. More like
There's a
there's
big tent with some kind of crazy people in it.
oh yeah,
What what uh what
there's a
what tent doesn't, right?
yeah, exactly. There's a smaller set of sort of, I would just call it pro men
Mm-hmm.
stuff, not anti women, but like stuff written by men for men. You know, with kind
Well,
of
I
the
mean,
focus is stuff that's
I
just
mean, going
like
back,
masculine value, and it's not. It's just if you got a family, it's just you got to take care of them. It's like there's some stuff you got to put up with, and there's some stuff you never ever put up with. You know, it's
yeah. I mean,
and
it goes back to like the
just strategy.
chivalry kind of things. Like, what is it?
Well, I don't know if I quite reached the point of calling this chivalry, given
But
the
it's in a similar. I mean, what have gotten me for years is like how we pine for women to have these greater numbers in the sciences, right? But this is at the same time that men are already out. Women outnumber men. 60 to 40% at most universities already.
because they don't have an interest in it. The
Well, but I
end.
mean, at the same point,
You know what
like,
you
why are
do
we
need to
not?
get
Why
kids
is
into the
it?
sciences?
But
Programs to constantly target them
well, yeah,
because they
and
like it.
we've talked about that in the past. My point today, at least in this case, is that
It works. Sorry.
it's fine. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I actually completely agree with you in most cases, but for the most part, I would say like why is it not an equally alarming trend that more and more men aren't finishing college? Like not just finishing college, but aren't even going to college. Like this is not even discussed hardly. I mean, it's one of those trends like, well, what's happening, but we live in a world that's obsessed with getting women more equality, or at the very least, there's a very loud, faction of people that are about that. But the fact that men are women outnumber men by 20% at most universities, this gets no play. Like, why is it perfectly acceptable to spend all this time and money to get women into STEM programs,
It's because
but
they hate men.
at the same time we're not trying to get men into social work? I mean, a lot of social work, as Baron on Ghost
Mm-hmm.
and Podcast would tell you, a lot of these social works would benefit really
You
significantly
there? I
from
lost you.
having more men in them, because a lot of the men
I'm
in those, a lot of men who are in those bad socioeconomic situations, which we've talked about earlier, respond more to men than they do to women, just because want to say that's misogyny or whatever, say that. But reality is, people associate with them, people they see more like themselves than they do something different. Be it race, be it creed, what have you.
Well, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's anti-men,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's ideologically anti-men. More particularly, it's anti-straight men, and more particularly, it's anti-straight white men, right, or Gentile white men, right? When you get down to it, because it's these whole sort of intellectual arguments that cast history entirely in terms of the conflict between white men and everybody else, which is historically unjustifiable, right? But it's just what they roll with, and they go with it because it works to their advantage. And if I was them, I wouldn't begrudge them because it gets them what they want. You know, um, I don't like them, to be honest. And the thing is I think they're mostly shit, um, and they're mostly enabled by government and universities that are mostly populated by supplicant, just like beta males and various other people from other groups that are into the system. Um, which is part of
Well,
what I talk about. Just not, which is what I talk about not in is about not engaging. Right? Is you never want to be in any situation where you have to engage with the justice system, because the justice system is against you if you're a white guy. Right? And you can say, oh, what about the people who got shot in Ferguson? Well, the police are the special exception. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Mexican, a woman, whatever. If you're a cop, you're above everybody else, right? Just like being a rich person. Doesn't matter what you are. If you're rich enough, you're outside of the system. I'm not talking about that dynamic. You know, um, the justice system is against you, right? The academy is against you. Um,
but I mean, how long do these institutions last? I mean, like the academy seems like it's
oh
come to
yeah,
a
but
point.
it's
It's come to a point where it's starting to, like, I don't think the major institutions are ever going to fall down, but
they're
you
gonna
start
they're gonna
to.
price they're just gonna price themselves out because it gets too expensive, and what they do has no social value,
Mm-hmm.
right? You studied in a STEM field, and then you studied in a profession. I
Yeah.
studied in the STEM field, and I'll tell you, my experience at college is a heck of a lot different than the people I know that went off and studied the liberal arts.
Well, and
Because
yeah, I could
I think
also
it's
speak to the
not the
other
same.
side of it too. Like, I
Yeah.
was a CD student in physics and astronomy. Yeah, with this few exception, there were some classes I did really well. I just was never, I wasn't, I was just never a college level physics student. I mean, I spent too much time on it. I wasn't bad, and in my math classes, I was more like a CB student. In But as a education student, I was an A student. Like,
Yeah.
why am I an A student in education, but I'm a CB student in math and a CD student in physics astronomy?
It's
Well,
because physics is
one's a
harder.
lot harder than the others. So it's a
Yeah.
moral of the story.
I remember
Like,
putting 13 hours in at a time in the computer lab on the weekends, writing programs to get for
or doing
class.
homework. Like, we'd
Yeah.
bust out like 12, 14-hour sessions on like physics 1 homework, on the weekends. And that was a
Yeah.
group of us doing it. It wasn't just one of us
Oh
sitting
yeah.
there. Like,
It's like
it
sitting and
was,
looking at somebody's E&M homework, and all it is just like it's the page is almost entirely lead or ink, and it's just
mhm.
integral, 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 integral. Um,
And I look back on that.
yeah.
I'd be a better student now because I have a better understanding of both the math and how you study. But at the same time, and some of that comes with education. At the same time, one is significantly harder than the other,
Oh yeah,
and
of
I,
course.
our social sciences have been degraded significantly. Like, these are, you look at a lot of the studies that get published, and obviously, there are a lot of places that make fun of, the junk studies, like studies that study the most obvious things because,
Yeah.
what we have to justify our grants. But at the same time, you kind of look at it and you're like, yeah, this is not like the academy in many ways is not enriching society anymore. And
Well, I think you overstate how much it was enriching society before.
well, I mean, I think there's value in it. I mean, that's not to say there's not value in it. It's just to say that the
Yeah,
value has been decreasing.
yeah. I mean, it's like anything. In the absence of, it's just nature, right? In the absence of any kind of external forces to induce change, things just rot away. They get big and slow and lazy, and then they just get
Well,
gobbled up. And
any
that's all that's
institution
happening.
will become more conservative, not conservative politically, but more conservative in the
Yeah,
will in its actual like
circle the wagon.
in
Yeah.
its behavioral models. It's going to become more willing. It's going to be less willing to engage in change. It's going to be more intolerant of outside ideas. It's going to generally become more isolated, from the larger culture and the people
Pigeon
within it.
tenure would be a nice start.
Yeah, well, I mean, and these aren't people in the tenure system. These aren't people who are unionized or have There's no reason you have to have a tenure system, other than that's the way it's always been. But then you have to have an evaluation system that actually takes into account if these people are good at their jobs or not, which is something I don't think most universities really want to say.
Most of these people are just parasites, either on the taxpayers or the
How many
students.
professors over the course of your time bitch about how bad their salary is?
I actually never had one complaint.
Really, I think I've probably
Never.
had. I can think of at least three good examples, and though who it was always the like as you say the non-STEM area people like the history professors, the
The thing is
sociology professors, the
there's
education
value.
professors.
There's a ton of value in non-STEM areas. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is that when you get away from STEM areas, the basis for evaluation gets fuzzy, and there's the old guard people, like old-fashioned historians and philosophers and these kinds of people that maintain really high standards. Um, Most of the people I've had to deal with outside of STEM areas, are just it's just a circle jerk.
Yeah. Well,
It's pointless. It's completely devoid of any value whatsoever, and the system just perpetuates itself. It's like just, let's get more grad students to write books that no one will read. You know, it's just
and I'll have
that
and I'll have and I will publish a
there's no
book which
merit.
I will use for
This
my
stuff,
class, which I will make my
yeah,
students then pay for.
this stuff just had. The thing is, there's so many real genuine problems to solve and real genuine things that need to be done, to be manufactured, to be understood, to be optimized, to be just there's so much stuff to do, and the problem is that it requires basic competency. And the problem is our society is uncomfortable with calling people incompetent, or rather it's not comfortable with setting a it's not comfortable setting criteria of competency for stuff to be done. And so we always have to sort of
Well,
fake
we're
around it.
comfortable setting the
We
material,
fake
but we're never.
around it when at the end of the day, competency is what reigns, right? Hiring people,
Apparently
getting all
not,
this stuff
because our
done.
current president would have failed every competency test ever.
That's politics. That's like the academy. All the
I
people,
know, but I think about like what would you
all the
consider an effective, competent president? I mean, and other than his speeching, which is effective at times. I won't
I thought he
begrudging
was
that.
cool. I liked him reading the mean tweets about the Coors Light a couple of nights ago.
But
Did you
other
see
than
that?
like pre-reading prepared remarks, he's never impressed anybody with everyone. Okay, he's impressed a certain percentage of people, but
He's a smart guy.
he's not.
Come on. He's a smart guy.
I don't think I really have never been. I've never really felt he's like. I take the standard of a smart president would be someone like Bill Clinton. Like Bill Clinton
Oh
is
well,
a
Bill Clinton
legitimately
was
is a
yeah.
like this guy is a Rhodes Scholar. Like
Oh
someone
yeah, no,
pointed out, like
he's
we were trying to.
smarter,
Yes,
but
I mean, oh, Clinton. I was gonna say if you look at Obama versus Bush. Like Bush is generally perceived as this really dumb guy.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean
you
that's
look
pretty
at like
obvious, right?
their incompetency. Like you look at Obama versus Bush, they're really not any more competent than each other. And I don't get the
Look,
impression one
they
is
might not be more
significantly.
competent. Oh, sorry,
I
go
don't
ahead.
get the
Say
impression one is significantly smarter than the other either.
that is.
I
I
just.
don't even know what to say to that because you could because no, I mean you could say they're both equally effective or ineffective in their roles as presidents, but in terms of just actual intelligence, come on now, come
No,
on.
I don't think Bush
That's unbelievable.
like if you want to say
Bush
like
is
if you want to say like Bush's verbal intelligence, like his verbal intelligence isn't that high. But but is his actual intelligence is that low? I don't think so. And the same thing with
well,
Obama. Obama has very
I
high
put
verbal intelligence, but I don't
Bush
think
at
his
100.
actual. Go ahead.
I put Bush at 100 ish. Put him right there, square in the middle of the
Okay,
distribution.
I would say that.
Obama 120,
Uh,
110.
the the I've seen a couple of analysis,
He's a small. I mean,
going back years,
he's above
it
average.
in saying he was probably around a 115 or so.
Which
In
one,
which
Bush?
Obama, and
Okay.
I wouldn't disagree with the 100, maybe 105 for Bush. That would probably be fair. I don't.
I mean, I mean, he's not below average.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, he's not like walking around just like
he's
flipping
not
his
running into
genitals out in the
walls,
air
right?
and just like yelling, obscenities. I mean, he's not like he's not Forrest Gump or something. But no, but he's drastically under the IQ requirements for that role.
Well, and
Drastically under the
I would
IQ
say
requirements. For that.
you should have is it so wrong, like, in a country of 30 million or 300 million plus people, that we can't ask for at least someone of, a maybe not quite genius level intelligence, but, someone of political skills and of you're looking in the high, maybe 20s, 30s level of intelligence, 120s, 130s.
What I would want is I would want somebody that's an actual effective political operator,
I don't think
and
we're going
that
to
has.
get that.
Oh, it depends. It looks like I think Hillary Clinton is going to run.
Yes, but Hillary Clinton, I don't
I
think is
put
an
her.
effective
Oh,
political operator.
oh,
I think she's a. I think
come
she's
on
a.
now.
No, I think. Well, let's look at this whole email thing. This whole email thing. I think you really gotta wonder, like, how much, like, that is, like, you wonder a little bit about this stuff. Like, that was not a smooth move. I mean,
No, it wasn't. I mean, not everything is. I'm just saying she's.
Hillary is
I'm not.
not Bill. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you want to say I will give, like, begrudging respect to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton did a lot of, like, things that are very much beneath the office of the presidency, but
Admit
nonetheless,
it. Bill
like,
Clinton was a smooth political operator. Admit it. Bill Clinton
Bill
was a
Clinton is
smooth political
he's a
operator.
very classic Democratic president, like center of the wheel kind of guy who wants to control all the levers of power and ran those levers relatively effectively. Now, did he was it within, yeah, obviously his presidency had a fair number of scandals and
Oh hell, he should have been
oh,
brought up on treason charges for his selling nuclear secrets to the Chinese. I'm not saying I like him. I'm
yeah,
just telling. I'm just. You just got to admit the skills and the good things he
he's
does when he does.
he's a probably the most competent, operator we've seen in a long time.
And here, I'll
Probably
say something
since
nice. I'll
probably
say
since
something nice
like
about George
Nixon
Bush.
or Johnson. Clinton's probably the most
Okay.
competent
Yeah,
president
yeah.
we've had.
I like Nixon and Johnson. I don't like them as people, but I find them
No, I
like
agree with that statement
you
entirely.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I respect their ability to get stuff, especially Johnson, who is just evil. I respect his ability to get stuff done. Um, no, but okay, I'll say something nice about Bush because I will almost never say anything good about him because literally, I think he should have been just hanging from a lamppost. Like literally, think he should have been executed. Okay, as a war criminal. Truly, do not like him. He was great for national parks. There,
Okay.
he was great for the
I think
National Park Service.
I think the other thing he was competent for was the establishing ties with India. But those are really the things I think will probably stand with him long term. But like
But I'm
pushing,
like the
but
he did good stuff. You know, he did good stuff.
Such a
It
stupid
didn't
stuff.
make up for all that blood on his
No
hands.
Child Left Behind. People forget
Oh, he
him.
did a lot more.
He did these like crazy things. This is why the conservative.
He was a disastrous president. He did much worse, much more horrible things than good things. I won't defend him, but I will say that he was not uniformly awful.
It was
You
it
know,
was a
and it's
hard
the same
it
thing.
was a hard eight
I don't
years to
like
be a
Obama. I don't like
conservative.
Obama because Obama is just an empty suit. You know, um, and
Yeah,
he's
I gotta
ineffective.
imagine
He's
Democrats
just a big
feel.
flaccid dongle. You know, like there's nothing. He can't get anything done. You know, and but
Democrats feel the way we did, or obviously you're not because Republican, but the way a lot of us Republicans felt during the last 4 years of the Bush presidency. It's like, dear God, can't he just go away? Like, oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And he can't just go away. Like, they're stuck with Obama because Obama has all these different things, and he continuously like the nice thing about Bush, was Bush didn't want to be the center of attention. Like Bush was the center of attention by virtue of being president, but
yeah.
Bush wasn't out there out front of the cameras every single day, like basically making himself look like an idiot. I mean, as much as he made himself look like an idiot various times, he wasn't the kind of person who insisted on doing this on a daily basis. Obama, on the other hand, is going to be out there, doing his thing every single day because he needs, the
That's his
narcissistic
strength,
need.
though. That's his. Oh, I don't know if
It's
it's
just
narcissism.
strength, but at the
It's his
same time,
strength.
your strength, eventually your
You
strengths
play to your
weak,
strengths.
but eventually your strengths become your weaknesses too. You know.
Plus, I mean, yeah. I mean, he can be over. He overdoes it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's better that he's out there talking than not. Typical. Oh, hey, by the way, political stuff, real quick. Yes
Yeah.
or no? Is Vladimir Putin dead?
I would vote no until we see a body. I
I've just heard
until
about this. I just
I,
heard about all this Putin stuff last night on 4chan, and I got interested.
yeah,
So
I don't think we have a solid answer. I mean, is
on
something going
poll,
on?
the 4chan on the 4chan politics board,
Mm-hmm.
which is I recommend you visit sometime when you're not in any kind of a place where like your wife, child, coworkers, ministers, or anyone of any social value whatsoever can see you reading it. It's awesome. It's horrible. It's just horrible. It's about one quarter communist, one quarter neo Nazis, one quarter trolls, and one quarter people that are just not even classifiable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a train wreck. It's like everything in 4chan. But
Woo-woo.
anyways, the fun thing though is that they're all obsessed and love Putin because the communists love him, the Nazis love him, the trolls love him, the unclassifiables love him. Putin is the one guy that forum can get behind, which is hilarious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, they've just been going nuts about him possibly being dead. And they've been obsessed with this claim that MI5, which doesn't make any sense because it's internal security for
Yeah.
Britain, but they're saying M15, like M15 from Britain killed him. It's like M15, really,
But I
really.
mean,
What
these kind of
does M15
communities
mean?
obsess
MI5? That
over
also doesn't make sense. You mean MI6? Maybe.
these kind of communities obsess over. I mean, these are the kind of communities that love conspiracy nonsense. I mean,
Oh, by the way, you know
how
what I
many
learned?
9/11 truthers are in this thing too? I mean, I bet it's probably a significant number of the population also think that America was behind.
Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, Sayo.
I clearly. I mean,
No, but
it's not like things have to be melting to be structurally unsound. We
by
don't.
the way, did I send you that picture where the girl wishes that she could talk to ponies? Did I ever send you that?
No, I don't believe I've seen
So
that.
it's four panels, and the first one it was from a kid's book, and you can tell they went in and just whited out the text and put in their own in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl and the fairy is like, "I'll grant you any wish you want." And the girl goes, "I want to talk to ponies." And then at the end, you see this pony leaning down, talking to her, and the girl's like cowering, and all that, and all that pony is saying is jet fuel can't melt steel beams, Deborah.
Wow.
The pony's just harassing her with 9/11 conspiracies. So she's crying. I think it's funny. Anyways,
But these are the kind
but
of people who, yeah, these are the kind of people who live in Fortran land.
but the point is
In a lot of
so
internet
I have no,
communities.
but okay, I got a thing to tell you though. I read this on Zero Hedge,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little weird place,
I
but
don't
not.
know Zero Hedge. That's new to me.
Oh, well, I think you'd like it. It's conservative for sure. So,
Okay.
like broadly too, I'm not a Republican. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. Because I was a registered Republican for.
You haven't been a Republican for a long time.
Well, officially, I only changed a few years ago, but no,
In practical application, it's
in
been a
practical
while.
application, I've not been. No, I have not been a Republican in a long time. Though I did vote for McCain. I will toss that out. Um, and I should stand by that vote too. Oddly enough.
I don't really
Um,
think McCain was a bad vote.
no, I stand by it. Then
Mm-hmm.
I don't like him now, but I'll stand by it then. Right? But anyways,
I don't think
um,
anyone liked it before then, and people didn't really like him that much after it. But at the moment,
exactly. He's just kind of. I mean, he's an old kind of creepy
it was
Frankenstein
okay.
monster. But I felt he was more competent, and I still kind of feel that way. Anyways, but I digress. The point I'm getting to is, even though I'm not a Republican, for the most part, I would still put my politics pretty squarely in the right, just not in the
Mm-hmm.
Republican
No,
camp,
no, you're
because I won't vote Democrat, right? But on the other hand, like I said, I think Bush should have been charged for war crimes, and I think all these 47 people like Orrin Hatch and John McCain that went out to Iran should be charged with treason. I think it's for circumventing
yeah.
the process. You
No,
know,
I think
I don't
you're
like the party.
expressing the view. Charlie W. Cook, one of the writers for National Review,
Yeah,
has a book that just came out called like Conservative Libertarianism or something like that. And the point of the book. I've heard him do a couple of interviews. Is basically this fundamental conflict between libertarianism and conservatism.
yeah,
Libertarianism, talking about like the war on drugs, gay marriage. Like
yeah.
these are the two fundamental. Like the
Yeah,
conservative view on like the war of drugs is we need to have the war on drugs. The war on drugs is saving lives. The libertarian view says legalize it all. Like these are like
war on
very
drugs to me
different.
is just completely insane. It
But
makes zero sense.
these are very different views, and they're also largely generational. Like generationally, our generation has basically said we're okay with gay marriage, we're okay with legalizing, at least pot. Some people say everything.
I wanted
Pot
to
is basically,
legalize DMT so I can smoke it because you can't find it anywhere. I want to.
anyways. Despite,
I've never had it. I just want to smoke it.
anyways, staying on topic because we need to shut this down soon. Uh, the his and then the older version being the with the gay marriage, obviously that's generational as well, and finding and maybe we'll have the Supreme Court solve this and it won't be an issue here anyways, but the conservative basically, how do you square the wheel on some of this? And some of it you just can't, but in some of it, it'll be the
No,
party will move on and the party will accept, like the war on drugs. The war on drugs will probably another 20 years, maybe sooner, that when our generation takes power of the part of the Republican Party, it'll probably be one of those things that just goes away.
there's not gonna be a Republican Party in 20 years.
Well,
The
they're
demographics are gonna
just
kill them.
well, then people will become. I mean,
I'll,
then there will
I'll
be
tell you.
something. There'll be something else to replace it that'll
Have
serve
I told
the
you my
same
theory about the
function.
Republican Party or about what's going to happen to it?
Probably at some point.
I don't. Actually, I don't think I have.
Quickly,
I actually,
quickly.
I actually think is there's going to be a rise, a multicultural, a rise in diversity in the United States. I think what's going to happen to the Republicans is they're going to become the white party.
I mean, that's arguably what's happened now. I mean, but at the same point,
I
where
think
there's
because
a
I think the
more
Democratic Party is going to shove. It's going to increasingly go behind identity politics, and it's going to marginalize a lot of the white members. And I think it's going to end up being the Republicans are going to, in the process, I think they're going to move towards the center. I think they're going to become not a conservative party, but an identity party, just like I think the Democrats are already doing.
But I
My
mean,
own
if you look at
theory.
like Hispanic populations have never voted more than, you know, yeah, I've never voted, 70%. So Hispanic populations are significantly more diverse than, everyone kind of assumes that Hispanics, Latinos are going to vote like African Americans do. that seems incredibly unlikely that those populations that Hispanics are ever going to be 90% one way, 10% the other. Even 96% one way in case of Barack Obama, 10% the other. Because places like Texas have large Latino populations, which are relatively conservative, or
it doesn't matter when the population's large enough what the skew is, right?
But yes, yes and no. I mean, who votes? I mean, Latino populations also have really low voting percentages. So when are you gonna? So it depends on who's running it. In a lot of cases, it depends on who's moving. Like every time someone has tried to make predictions about this party will be dead in the next couple of years because of demographics, you would have said this about if you were a polling analyst about in the late 1800s. You said, well, Irish population's growing. Clearly, those populations will be to the fortune of Democratic population because they always vote Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much true is that today in 2015? Your analysis is going to break down at some point in the future because patterns are going to change. Like eventually, stop. Like party, we can speak to this right now, in that we don't feel like our parties represent our self-interest very well. What do you do when you do that? Well, either you stop voting, you change parties, or you find a new outlet that also represents your view.
I stopped voting.
You stop voting. Other people are going to switch parties. Other people are going to try to change the existing parties to represent their views. If you're a minority, like so, if you're a Hispanic in the Republican Party, you have a large voice and have a lot of influence. If you're Hispanic in the Democratic Party, you're a small voice and don't have a significant amount of influence because you're one of many. Where if you're one of a few, you have a lot more influence, and your ability to make changes is significant. I mean, this is arguably why the immigration stuff has so much weight in the Republican Party, because those people, the Hispanic part of the party says, let's get this off the table so that we can get these people into the party and it stops being an issue. Is it a way to win? I don't know. I can't speak to that. And I don't know. I think history tells me that there won't be a Republican Party, there'll be a Democratic Party, and they'll still be winning elections effectively. It's not gonna. On many of the presidency not gonna be changing hands a lot, but that was true for a lot of the 20th century, where Republicans controlled the presidency relatively effectively, but they weren't ever in control of Congress. Right now, we seem to be in a different situation where Republicans like to be capable, whether they will or not is another entirely different situation, but capable of holding the Congress for a significant amount of time going forward. But they probably won't be able to hold they might not be able to hold the presidency for a while to come. Okay, that is what it is. Is that ultimately good or bad? Probably not good, at least for you or I, because of what we value. But at the end of the day, both parties have
you forgot something though.
What's that?
Aliens.
Aliens? I don't believe aliens are going to be a significant political force in the near future.
They already are.
Okay. We need to wrap this up a little because we are running way long, and I need to go to bed soon. So
yeah, I got some coding I need to get done.
Okay,
right. But I was hoping to play Deus Ex, but it still isn't done downloading.
Oh, that sucks. Okay, Steven, how can people get a hold of you?
I'm on Twitter at FlyingCarsKill,
which is a wonderful handle as always. And
I like it.
Yeah, I think it.
I have a portfolio page I'm working on right now. It's just off my GitHub. It's mostly just a bunch of blank links at the moment. So I won't. And
anyone who's interested in contacting you about potential gaming projects should totally get a hold of you there.
Yeah, on Twitter, yeah. Also, for anyone if you're just looking to get some freelance programming done at the moment, I've got some temporary bandwidth. So most of my work has been with compiled languages, but I also have some work in web languages and a few examples of websites I've built I can show off. Mostly with PHP. So if you need any of that, hit me up.
Cool. And what is your handle for your Blizzard handle? Or your real ID handle?
Yeah, if you want to play Hearthstone with me, my handle's Diffeomorph. After the mathematical operation, the diffeomorphism.
Spell it out.
DIFFEOMORPH. Diffeomorph. As in kind of like an isomorphism, but it's different instead of the same. The diffeomorph.
Okay. Cool. And our regular co-host, who I don't know where the hell they ended up tonight. I know Porkchop couldn't get here. Porkchop Hawaii at Twitter on Twitter, and Scott_Alvarado, who he was here. If you don't want to hear Scott,
let's hope he didn't die, because he has a dog, and the dog might die too. There'll be 2 deaths instead of 1.
If he's dead, I will drive over to his house tomorrow. And
but seriously, like, have you heard anything from him?
Yeah, he was on Twitter yesterday. He was here Friday.
Okay, so he's alive then. Okay, cool. I just get worried. I get worried sometimes because of the heart, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was. he fell asleep. I assume he fell asleep. It was either he fell asleep or his dog was an issue.
I gotta worry that Noah's death tonight on Walking Dead might have been too much for him.
Mm-hmm. It looks like the last time he tweeted was about 10 hours ago. So, clearly. And I did send him a text yesterday, and he responded to it. So,
could be aliens.
Could be aliens. I don't. It's best not ask too many questions about what the aliens are doing. So,
you never ask what they're doing.
And I am. If you want to follow the show, it's a Farfield Cast. We'll be back on Sunday the 29th, and that might change. It might change to either Friday or Saturday, because apparently it's supposed to be a really long episode of Walking Dead for the season finale.
Yeah, 2 hours.
We don't want to wait.
It's gonna be cool.
This, but that's the start of my. That's the start of my extended. What is it? Spring break. So I'm fine to do it. So yeah, sometime the weekend of the 29th of March here, we will be doing a show. Stay tuned. When I have something, I will be happy to pass that along. But let's just tentatively call it the 29th at 10 p.m. on Central Time. And if it's not that, I will let people know. Anything else before we take off, Mr. Seaman?
Thank you for having me. As we said, it was a bit of a synchronicity that got me here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're welcome to come in again in 2 weeks, and you can come when Scott and Porkchop are here, and we can have a good old time.
Yeah, for sure. I was just here to tune into the show, because I'm usually just.
Well, and it worked out well because the broadcast wasn't working anyways, so.
Yeah, exactly. Because I noticed there's nobody in the chat room or anything. So
no, it's because the actual broadcast thing isn't working. So whatever.
Okay.
Say love.
It's just 2 of us. It's fine. I felt like it was okay for fill-in.
It's all good. Yeah. We'll put it out and it'll all work out. 73s, everybody.
See you.